Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Everybody knows that I love football. I love football, I love football, I love football. I am a huge college football fan. And recently, there was a quarterback named Jaden Rashada who originally committed to Florida, decommitted to Florida, went to Arizona State last year. Now he entered the transfer portal and is now at Georgia, which is my favorite college. I live in Georgia. I'm a huge Bulldog fan. So I'm going to read to you the filing in Jaden Rashada versus basically the University of Florida and one of their collectives. College football has been a huge mess with this whole NIL. Whether you agree or you disagree, it was put in place with no boundaries, no rules, and things have been cray. So with that, this is the first lawsuit that I've seen where a student is suing a collective because they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. He is suing for fraud. I've seen not a lot, every sports channel talk about this. All the mainstream ones, Fox Sports 1, USA Today, CBS Sports, all of those. But I've also seen every YouTube channel from every Georgia football channel, On3, Outkick, to every independent creator in the sports world talking about this. But I've never seen anyone actually read it. I got my hands on the filing, and we are going to read it. I'm probably going to have to break this video up into two parts, only because it is 37 pages, and well, I am not good with extended videos. I don't think anybody can maintain an attention span with an extended video reading a 37-page filing. So I'm going to read the first part, and then I will record and upload this as two separate videos. All right. Jaden Rashada versus Hugh Hathcock, William Billy Napier, Marcus Castro Walker, and Velocity Automotive Solutions. Defendants. Plaintiff Jaden Rashada's original complaint. Plaintiff Jaden Rashada, Jaden, and by through counsel, hereby files this original complaint against defendants Hugh Hathcock, William Billy Napier, Marcus Castro Walker, and Velocity Automotive Solutions, LLC. Collectively defendants. The unsuccessful recruitment of star high school quarterback Jaden Rashada to the University of Florida is emblematic of the abuses running rampant in the world of big-time college football. Student athletes can now be paid for the use of their name, image, and likeness, more commonly known as NIL. Jaden's miserable experience reveals in stark and dramatic detail what can happen to young student athletes when wealthy, win-at-all-cost alumni insert themselves into college football's recruiting process. At the time of event in this complaint, Jaden was a 19-year-old college football prospect. He grew up in a football family in a working-class Pittsburgh, California. Upon graduating from Pittsburgh High School in 2022 with a 4.0 GPA, Jaden was ranked 7th nationally in a class of 2023 college-bound quarterbacks. As such, he was recruited by several of the country's elite college football programs, including Louisiana State University, Texas A&M University. Side note, I don't know if you'd consider Texas A&M elite after the Jimbo Fisher debacle, but that's a whole separate video in itself. University of Oregon, University of Mississippi, University of Miami, and University of Florida. UF had been at the helm of pushing the limits of the ever-evolving NIL landscape. Its football program and head football coach, defendant Coach Napier, aka Sunbelt Billy, are central figures in this story. The NIL games start with the relationship between a university sports program and its alumni, boosters, and funding organizations known as collectives. These entities, which are new to college athletics, play a crucial role in making NIL opportunities possible and in aiding in recruitment. This is the reality that led to the involvement of defendant Hugh Hathcock. Hathcock, a longtime UF booster, has used his money in significant ways to pledge his allegiance to UF. In 2022, Hathcock displayed his commitment and loyalty to UF athletics with an 8-figure donation to the Athletics Association, the largest donation in the program's history. To show its gratitude, UF approved the naming of the Hugh Hathcock Suite Tower at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and the Hugh Hathcock Basketball Complex at the U of F basketball practice facility. The 64-year-old entrepreneur has clearly been successful and public about his business endeavors, with various media sports estimating his net worth at $500 million. Given such a lofty status, Hathcock, along with the alumni, boosters, and staff with ties to the UF athletics program, used their collective power, influence, and wealth to fraudulently induce Jaden to commit to UF. They sold Jaden on the idea that by flipping his commitment from Miami to UF, not only could he play for a top offensive program, but he also could receive significantly more money. Edward Rojas, the CEO of the Gator Collective LLC, was also deeply involved throughout the effort to flip Jaden. Once Jaden committed to UF, Rojas continued to convey false and empty promises to Jaden. Quote, "Tell Jaden we look forward to setting him up for life," unquote. Quote, "We need to set up Jaden's brokerage accounts ASAP." Quote, "Dude is rich and we just got started." Deceitful promises such as these did indeed convince Jaden to flip and sign a $13.85 million NIL deal with the Gator Collective. These are students. I remind you, these are students who are fresh out of high school, have no idea about anything in life, and are getting this kind of money offered to them for playing football. But once Jaden committed to UF, rather than make Jaden rich as promised, these people, with Hathcock leading the charge, changed their tune and went back on their word. The amount of the UF-affiliated NIL money available to Jaden decreased drastically. In an effort to further deprive Jaden of any other possible NIL opportunities, defendants continued to manipulate Jaden until he signed a letter of intent with UF. These actions culminated with Coach Napier himself vouching that UF alumni were good on their promise, and Jaden would receive $1 million if he signed with UF on National Signing Day. Defendant Castro Walker leveraged the coach's promise that Napier would, quote, "get it done," and threatened on National Signing Day that if Jaden did not sign a national letter of intent with UF, Coach Napier might walk away from Jaden entirely. Despite the threats and promises, neither Coach Napier nor wealthy boosters like Hathcock ever, quote, "got it done" for Jaden. Instead, after inducing Jaden through false promises to forego NIL deals from other programs, including $9.5 million from Miami. There's another issue I have with that. A lot of outlets are saying that never was $9.5 million, but I digress. Defendants attempted to strong-arm Jaden into an NIL contract worth a fraction of what they promised. Here, defendants used lies to secure Jaden's commitment to UF only if he tried to retrade the deal once Jaden had given up the other multi-million-dollar NIL opportunities available to him. The legal terms for what happened to Jaden are fraud and fraudulent inducement. Sadly, unethical and illegal tactics like this are more and more commonplace in the wild, wild west that is today's college football landscape. And the first scholar athlete to take the stand against such egregious behavior by adults who should know better, Jaden seeks to hold defendants accountable for their actions to expose the unchecked abuse of power that they shamelessly wielded. Jurisdiction and venue. This court has jurisdiction over the proceedings under 28 U.S.C. Code 1332 because this case arises between two citizens of different states and the matter in controversy controversy exceeds the sum or value of $10 million. Venue is proper in the Northern District of Florida pursuant to 28 USC 1391A1. Because of this, the judicial district in which the defendant Hugh Hathcock resides. The Pensacola Division of the Northern District of Florida is the proper division. That's just saying where it should be. The parties, plaintiff Jaden Rashada is a citizen of the state of Georgia and resident in Clark County, Georgia. At the time of events that are central to the claims of this case, Jaden was a resident of California. Jaden now goes to UGA and will be behind this fall. Right. Defendant Hugh Hathcock is a resident of Okaloosa County, Florida. Hathcock is a successful entrepreneur and dedicated UF athletics booster. Hathcock claimed to have established his own NIL collective called the Gator Guard Marketing LLC for the purpose of financing the large NIL deals for Florida athletes. Hathcock's self-professed primary aim for his own collective was attracted to high-profile athletes by offering substantial sums of money. Defendant Hathcock redacted. I redacted as many addresses and any identifying information as I could. I didn't redact the fact that Jaden Rashada resides in Clark County because that's where UGA is, and it's common knowledge that he goes to UGA now. Defendant Coach Billy Napier is a head football coach at the University of Florida. Defendant Marcus Castro Walker served as the Director of Player Engagement and NIL for the University of Florida. Castro Walker reported to Coach Napier and participated in efforts to recruit Jaden to UF. Defendant Velocity Automotive Solutions, LLC, is a Florida limited liability company with its principal address in Destin, Florida. Facts: Jaden was a highly sought-after quarterback in the 2023 recruiting class. Jaden grew up in a football family. His father, Harlan Rashada, was a standout football player for Arizona State University, and his two older brothers played college football as well. When Jaden began looking at colleges, Jaden looked for a program with an offensive-minded head coach and a solid offensive coordinator. The new world of NIL compensation becomes a key factor in Jaden's college recruitment. When Jaden entered the 2023 college recruitment season, the NCAA had only recently adopted rules allowing compensation to student athletes for use of their name, image, and likeness. This new NIL regime opened the door to formation of so-called collectives, groups of donors who agreed to fund NIL contracts with athletes in exchange for the athlete's de facto commitment to a particular university. With the emergence of collectives, NIL contracts became a major component of college recruiting. The problem is, my personal opinion, there was no rules with it. So it was whatever goes, whatever you want to do, and the richest universities with the richest boosters can pay the most. It sucks, but it is what it is. Jaden's recruitment season involved universities and its boosters not only selling their football program, but also discussing lucrative NIL proposals. Their recruitment ultimately boiled down to two famed Florida football schools, UF and Miami. Hugh Hathcock sets his eyes on Jaden. Defendant Hathcock participated in Jaden's recruitment from the very beginning, specifically in June of 2022. When Jaden made a recruitment visit to UF, Hathcock was there. During the visit, Hathcock spoke with Jaden and told him that whatever Jaden needed to come to UF, Hathcock would make happen. Hathcock also suggested that he could secure employment for Jaden's father, Harlan, in the security industry. All of these promises ultimately proved to be lies. Later that summer, Hathcock offered Jaden an approximately $11 million UF-affiliated NIL deal. This offer was to be funded partially through defendant Velocity Automotive and partially through the Gator Guard. By the time Jaden received this offer, he had already verbally committed to the University of Miami's coach. Ultimately, on June 26, 2022, Jaden publicly committed to play football at the University of Miami. Jaden also agreed to a $9.5 million NIL deal. UF conspired to flip Jaden from his commitment with Miami to UF. Despite Jaden committing to Miami, UF and its boosters persisted in their recruitment efforts. This pressure campaign culminated with an NIL offer exceeding Miami's by more than $4 million, which ultimately led to Jaden's committing to UF. Texts in October 2022 from defendant Castro Walker's UF director of NIL and player engagement exemplified these renewed efforts. Specifically, Castro Walker approached Jaden's NIL agents, Jackson Zager and Thomas Thompson, about Jaden flipping his commitment from Miami to UF on or around October 27th, 2022. Castro Walker sent a text to Zager stating, "You already know what we need to do over the next few days. Get us the QB." Defendants knew that flipping would require Jaden to abandon his commitment to Miami, and with the widely publicized $9.5 million NIL agreement to which he had agreed. Ultimately, Hathcock conspired with Castro Walker, Coach Napier, and others to fraudulently induce Jaden to abandon his $9.5 million Miami deal. Together, defendants agreed to represent their willingness and the ability to exceed Miami's $9.5 million NIL agreement if Jaden flipped to UF. As evidenced by the complete lack of funds to support this commitment, however, the defendants made these representations and promises to Jaden knowing that they lacked both the intention and the ability to fulfill them. Working alongside defendant Hathcock, Castro Walker communicated to Zager and Thompson what UF would pay if Jaden decommitted from Miami and committed to play football for UF. On or around October 30th, 2022, a few days after Castro Walker told Zager, "Get us the QB," Castro Walker sent another text to Zager, "We need to lock down Jaden." Castro Walker further conveyed the high sense of urgency, stating UF would want Jaden to flip this week. In early November 2022, Hathcock and Castro Walker worked closely and concertedly to pressure Jaden with the extravagant NIL offers. The ultimate proposal promised Jaden $13.85 million over 4 years at UF. The offer, which was $4 million or 42% more than the Miami deal, was to be funded through two sources. First, Hathcock would pay $5.35 million, including a $500,000 signing bonus, through Hathcock's company Velocity Automotive. Let's see. Footnote 1. At times relevant to this complaint, Hathcock was an officer of Velocity Automotive with the actual and apparent authority to act on Velocity Automotive's behalf. The remainder of the $13.85 million would be paid through Hathcock's NIL collective Gator Guard. Footnote 2. On or around November 9th, 2022, Zager reported to Jaden's father, Harlan, conversations that he had with Castro Walker and Hathcock relating to the structure of the UF NIL deal. Zager told Jaden and Harlan, "Had the contract with Velocity being ironed out now. Hugh wanted to discuss again in the AM. Should just be plugging in at that point and be done with. Collective side is done, just need to finish this part." Through these discussions, Hathcock's representations led Jaden to believe that Castro Walker, Coach Napier, and others had the authority to negotiate the NIL agreement with Hathcock and Velocity Automotive would fund. As such, defendants Castro Walker and Coach Napier acted with actual and apparent authority with respect to their representations on behalf of Hathcock. Hathcock clearly was an agent of Velocity Automotive with an actual and apparent authority regarding the NIL agreement. Footnote 2. Though Hathcock reportedly formed the Gator Guard and reportedly raised $5 million for the Gator Guard to fund UF student-athlete NIL contracts, no entity called Gator Guard Marketing appears to have ever registered with the Florida Secretary of State. Here's another issue. Although a nonprofit entity called Gator Guard Charity Inc. was formed in May of 2022, and shares an address with Velocity Automotive, an entity Hathcock owns and controls. It's unclear how this entity could have supported guaranteed payments to the extent contemplated by Hathcock and Castro Walker's representations to Jaden. Interesting. Hathcock felt so confident that his fraudulent promises would persuade Jaden to commit to UF that Hathcock tweeted, "Tomorrow will be a great day, Gator fans." On November 10th, 2022, during that early morning, Zager reported the status of negotiations to Harlan. Contract drafted, reviewing this AM. Will lock in the value with Hugh here. I think Jaden will be able to sign this thing by tonight if y'all are ready then. I'll keep you in the loops with updates. This report was based on promises made by Hathcock through Castro Walker. Before the deal was finalized, however, Hathcock balked. Citing plans to sell Velocity Automotive, Hathcock declined to use his company or the Gator Guard to directly fund the promised NIL payments. Castro Walker and Hathcock therefore suggested that the funds from Hathcock and his company pass through the Gator Collective. Castro Walker and Hathcock then partnered with Rojas, the CEO of Gator Collective. They all assured Jaden and his agents that the deal would still be fully funded. For example, after Thompson and Zager learned about Hathcock's plans to sell his company, Jennifer Grosso, the Gator Collective's lawyer drafting the UF NIL agreement, confirmed during a phone call with Thompson and Zager that Hathcock would wire money monthly so that all necessary payments could be made to Jaden. Ms. Grosso specifically stated that Hathcock would fund the first $500,000 owed to Jaden. She wanted Jaden and his family to know that UF was serious about securing Jaden's commitment. She made these representations with actual and apparent authority to negotiate the contract on behalf of Rojas and Hathcock. Rojas, the CEO of the Gator Collective, was also heavily involved in efforts to flip Jaden's commitment. During the evening of November 10th, 2022, Rojas text messaged Zager, "Heard we are working together. Doing big things, brother." Rojas confirmed his involvement, stating, "Let me finish the paperwork and get his flip tonight. Excited about this for all of us." Rojas also emphasized the unique significance of Jaden's flipping from UF's rival, Miami, texting, "We are going to have to dodge the freaks in Miami. I hate Miami. This is going to be fun to watch." Oh, I wish I had a voice modulator for this one. That would be great. Rojas crowed about the life-changing impact the falsely promised NIL compensation would have, saying, "Tell Jaden we look forward to setting him up for life. Need to set up his brokerage accounts ASAP. Dude is rich, and we just got started." As the parties exchanged draft agreements, Hathcock continued to show his involvement in the imminent flip by tweeting, "All good, just a little longer." Ms. Grosso additionally pressured Jaden to make sure he publicly announced his commitment to UF on November 10th, 2022, around 10 p.m., when Jaden still had not announced his commitment. Grosso impatiently text messaged Zager, "I might go to sleep if I had $500K headed my way in 2 weeks, but we need to get a commitment there. We need a commitment to get there." Relying on defendants' false promises, Jaden decommitted from Miami and left the $9.5 million agreement. Late on the night of November 10th, 2022, Jaden agreed to a $13.85 million NIL deal and publicly flipped his commitment from Miami to Florida. Hathcock, Castro Walker, and Coach Napier knew that once Jaden publicly flipped to UF, this would end his commitment to Miami and cost him his $9.5 million NIL agreement. Defendants falsely and fraudulently promised induced Jaden to engage in conduct he would not have engaged in otherwise. Namely, defendants' fraudulent promises caused Jaden to forego a $9.5 million NIL deal and other potential NIL packages. Jaden relied upon defendants' misrepresentations to his detriment because defendants had neither the ability nor the intention of honoring their promise to pay him $13.85 million. And I could be wrong, but I believe at that time That was the biggest supposed NIL contract in college football history. So it was a big deal at the time. Like, it was all over the news. All representations regarding the $13.85 million NIL deal leading up to this inducement were made by the defendants Hathcock, Castro Walker, and Coach Napier, either individually or as agents with actual and apparent authority. A. Knowing the representations were false. B. Without knowledge of their truth or falsity. Or C. Under the circumstances in which these defendants ought to have known, if they did not know, that their representations and promises were false. Defendants failed to honor their financial commitments to Jaden. The agreement was finalized and signed November 10th, 2022, and then less than a month later, without any warning, the Gator Collective abruptly and unilaterally terminated it. The deadline for the first $500,000 payment owed to Jaden pursuant to the agreement was December 5th, 2022. As the deadline drew near, Ms. Grosso informed Jaden's representatives that David Penny, an officer of Velocity Automotive, would coordinate Hathcock's payments. Penny, in turn, informed Jaden's agents that he was waiting on Hathcock's directions before paying. Castro Walker also represented that he was communicating with Hathcock about the payment, and that Hathcock was finalizing the logistics of the payment. Thus, leading up to the initial payment deadline, defendants' words and actions continued to communicate an intent to honor their promises. Despite defendants' many representations to the contrary, however, it ultimately became clear that the defendants never intended to pay Jaden the $500,000 that was promised as an initial payment. In furtherance of their fraud, on December 4th, 2022, Hathcock, through Castro Walker, again confirmed that the $500,000 payment would be coming the next day. Zager and Thompson asked Castro Walker for assurance that the payment would be made on December 5th, 2022, stating, "You are connecting with Hugh Hathcock later today on that first payment, correct?" Castro Walker responded, "Yes." And later, "Yes, I spoke to him the other day and was working something out with his accountants." But Hathcock, Castro Walker, and Coach Napier all knew something Jaden did not. No one had any intention of enforcing Hathcock's promise to pay $500,000, nor did they have any way of enforcing it. And, as Jaden would later learn, Hathcock had no intention of performing as he had promised. Instead, after failing to pay the agreed $500,000 initial payment on its due date, the very next day, the Gator Collective sent Jaden a letter purporting to terminate the $13.85 million NIL contract. Indeed, less than a month prior, Jaden had been persuaded by defendants to abandon his $9.5 million NIL agreement with Miami in favor of a promise of significantly more from UF. And now, on December 6, 2022, Jaden was left with no NIL assurances at all. And this is where I'm going to end part 1. I will be back with part 2, which is everything that you really want to know and what they want. Have a good night, everybody, and I'll see you in part 2. Don't forget to like and subscribe.